And it wasn't until I started transitioning that I really met myself for the first time.
Welcome to Fishing Without Bait, a lifetime without definitive expectations, where you've got here by accident or on purpose. Welcome aboard. There are no letters of reference required, no tests, no comparisons with others, and no homework except this. Challenge yourself when life feels especially heavy, when you feel down, when you feel restless, irritable, and discontent. Perhaps the lenses in your glasses have been reversed and all you can see is negativity. Perhaps you've been living your life on wishes and hopes alone. Here you have found a place where synergy and synchronicity come together, a place where we show you how to make magic, abracadabra, creating what you speak and speaking what you create, not necessarily material things, but the intangibles that no currency can create. Let us help you help yourself fully participate in your life. Together we will use the power of your mind and its energy to learn to think, not from our thoughts, but at them. Become the butterfly emerging from the chrysalis. Think back to Dorothy when she landed in Oz and opened the door to a world of color. Come with us, detach and untangle. Identify, describe, and live a life without definitive expectations. Step into our world of full impact mindfulness. Open the door to your authentic self and let the adventure begin. Welcome, my name is Jim Ellermeyer. I'm a behavioral health therapist, and as always, with our eclectic roster of guests, for those of you who are viewers of the podcast, and for those of you who are just not, shame on you, but however, welcome aboard. Today we welcome our new friend, Vic. Vic, how about give us an introduction to yourself?
Hi, Jim. Well, my name is Vic Costik. I am here because I am launching a podcast called New Rust, which is the story of Pittsburgh's transformation as a city told through the individual stories of cool people doing cool things in their community. In terms of my personal life, I am a designer professionally. I've done a lot of UX design in the tech industry. I've also done a lot of web design for local organizations. I did the Pittsburgh Pride website and the Trans Uniting website. I am also a community advocate for the LGBTQ community, and I am a trans masculine human. And if there's one thing that is for sure about me, it is that I love the city of Pittsburgh more than anything. Yeah, absolutely. Is that better? Yeah? Okay. Great. Okay. Got it.
So you sound like a Renaissance person, Vic, somebody who's not only transitioned, but transitioning through many of life. And the only thing constant about life is change. So you ended up here in Pittsburgh. So tell us about what you find enticing and entrancing about the city of Pittsburgh.
Well, I grew up in New York City, and although I really love New York and I have so much affection for that city, I don't think I really understood what community was until I moved to Pittsburgh. I grew up surrounded by people every day in massive crowds, and you'd think that more people would mean more opportunities for connection. But I think it actually fostered disconnection. And even to this day, when I go and visit my friends in New York, when I meet people who are in the trans community in New York City, they don't feel as connected to other LGBTQ people because it's just so large. It's hard to create niche communities. It's more like cliques of friends forming versus feeling like you're in community with a group. And one thing that really happened that changed my life was when I was early in transition, meeting people in the trans community in Pittsburgh and seeing that people wanted to really connect with me and build that found family. I think that's something that is degrading a little bit in our society as a whole. I think people go through life feeling like they need to focus on themselves. And I noticed the more that I tapped in and started doing things for other people in Pittsburgh, the more I found myself with a larger support system and people who really wanted to just gather together and bring something special together. And that resulted in things like queer only jam nights where I every Tuesday would go over to a friend's house and we would just make music and we would bang on random things in someone's basement and see what sound came out. And going to things like the zine fair and buying zines that some random person made in my community about something that they're passionate about. And I think those opportunities aren't as plentiful in other parts of the country and people don't even really realize it. So one of the things that I want to do is really just embrace all of the weird that Pittsburgh has to offer and all the cool little niche things happening here.
Well said and well spoken, Vic. It's obvious that you have a command of the language. So what we try to do at this show is get across the point that who are we to judge? And what we in the 12-step world, there's a saying that says there's a principle which will keep a person in everlasting ignorance, and that principle is contempt prior to investigation. So I would probably suspect and have a hunch that through your walking through life on your life journey, you've met many people who have had contempt prior to investigation.
I would say that's definitely the case. One thing that I've always prided myself on is being able to connect with people who haven't been exposed to trans people. When I was working at a small startup in Pittsburgh, I actually ended up in a position of authority, sort of having people report to me who had never even met a trans person before. And it was very interesting being in the position of someone just being terrified, not really being sure what to say, and encountering certain ignorant statements and having to kind of just figure out how to reframe things. I had one coworker of mine at a startup in Pittsburgh who I had to have a hard conversation with him about some of the things that he had said to me. And he got very flustered and he said, I really meant no offense. I just don't know how to interact with you. And I said, well, hey, why don't we go get lunch? And you shouldn't ask any questions about my physical body, but other than that, ask me questions. Ask the questions you're scared to answer. I'm going to let you. I'm going to let you ask me the questions that you're scared to ask, and we'll see where that goes. And he asked me a lot of things about what it's like growing up as a trans person, and I think that I repressed a lot of things I didn't need to repress for a very long time. But I always knew it was so hard to girl. I would call it I would say to myself, how do I girl? So much growing up. While I idolized men's fashion. Like I asked for men's fashion magazines when I was a teenager. I would want to wear backwards baseball caps and idolize men's fashion of the early 2000s. And I was definitely discouraged from this. I don't think the people in my life really knew any better. But it's clear to me that looking back, I didn't have the words to really understand what was happening in my brain because there is a neurological component. And I think if you sit down with someone who has never been exposed to trans people and you just say, this never really computed with the way my brain worked. And if you actually look at the neuroscience, people's brains work differently when they're transgender. And I think when people really understand those aspects of it, of just not being able to live authentically as the thing that you were perceived as when you were young, it makes it a lot easier to then open that door for them to see you as a person.
Well, as a therapist, what we try to do is connect people with their authentic selves and understanding that it's not a choice. I asked a person once, Vic, who was giving me some razzmatazz, and I asked him, I say, well, tell me, my friend, did you choose to be straight? And he said, no, I was born that way. And I just held my hands up. I'm sure you encounter that. So when people have a mind of uncertainty like that person had, that can lead to a mind of anxiety, worry, and fear. So what we try to do is we try to educate people as to that all people are children of the divine, and who are we to judge anything?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm Eamon.
I'm Merlin.
And we're a gay.
And his NB.
Are you a reality television connoisseur?
Do you like it discussed from an LGBTQ lens?
If so, A Gay and His NB is the podcast for you.
Hear us break down all your favorite guilty pleasure reality shows from Bravo, Drag Race, and just about everything in between.
Listen to A Gay and His NB on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Spirituality is a personal connection with something. And I thought, how could we possibly contribute more to people's lives like we're doing on the show? And as a result, I've made the choice to become an ordained minister. And as so, I am legally authorized to perform marriages in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Why choose our services over an established mansion of wood and stone? What we do is we offer a non-religious, spiritual-based, mindfulness-based type of bonding of two souls. We are based in the Pittsburgh area, however, am willing to travel and am open to any type of suggestions that would suit you and yours. Our goal is to make this day as easy as possible for both of you and have no worries. Let us handle the ceremony. Please contact the show for our rates and whatever we can possibly do to make that moment in time special for you and to create memories.
And I did everything I could, despite growing up in New York City, one of the places in the world where you'd think I'd be accepted more than anywhere else. I still repressed my gender and sexuality for a very long time. I actually got married at the age of 23 to my high school sweetheart, who is a lovely man. And to this day, we're close friends. I actually had dinner with him and his new wife just a few days ago. And I remember on my wedding day, we had been together for 7 years at that point. We were almost together for 10 years by the time we split up. I remember looking at myself in a big, fluffy white wedding dress, which was one of the first ones I tried on because I wanted to get out of the wedding dress shop so badly, and now I realize that was dysphoria. But I remember looking in the mirror, about to marry someone who I really loved, who had been my ride or die for many years, and thinking, is this me? This doesn't feel like me. And I look at that back at that day, and I was so happy to connect with the people that I loved, but I didn't feel like me, and I hadn't really felt like me for my whole life. And it wasn't until I started transitioning that I really met myself for the first time. I thought I was an introvert before I transitioned.
I love what you just said, Vic, meeting myself.
Yeah, and it wasn't an intentional, oh, I'm a trans guy and I'm going to live as a man. I just realized that something was really fundamentally wrong about 2 years into my marriage when I was with a very wonderful man. He is a therapist himself, actually. And I didn't like the feeling of being a wife. It didn't feel genuine to me. And I remember him saying to me, I love being married. I love being your husband. And it was so painful that I couldn't reciprocate that for someone who is still genuinely someone I consider one of the best people I've ever met. And I just sort of took it step by step of, I'm going to do things that feel right in my body. And I did that for a number of years, and that landed me where I am today. And it turns out I'm an extrovert, and I love talking to people. I used to stay at home in one room playing video games most of the time and just studying. And now I am out every single night in my community, meeting cool people, talking about cool stuff, and embracing all the weird that I have to offer, and embracing all the weird that everyone I know has to offer. And
So
I couldn't
you
be
bloom,
happier.
Vic.
Definitely. And it might not look the way that people want me to be, but I can't regret it, and I can't go back. And I can understand that that makes people uncomfortable, and the last thing I want to do is make people uncomfortable. I want to have conversations with everyone on the earth and explain things to them and get them to see that being trans is not that interesting, and not that interesting in terms of everything else in my life. I could have a conversation with someone about the tech industry, about cycling. Now I'm making myself seem like a real hipster here, but about books, about movies, about TV shows. There are so many different ways to connect with people. And if people had a chance to have a conversation with me, they could probably talk to me for over an hour before we would even get to those details about myself.
Okay. Well, I think it's really important that to show other people. When I deal with trans people, when I deal with LGBTQ, I deal with a lot of parents who, particularly mothers, who are very frightened when their child comes out either as trans or gay, because there's two things, Vic, that they have fears about, and people may not think that these are the two most fears. Number one, for mothers, they fear they're not going to have grandchildren. That's a big fear of mothers, females. And number two, that they feel that their child's going to be discriminated or physically hurt in some way.
Yeah. And it's a very real fear to think that someone will be discriminated against or hurt in some way. I think there has definitely been a shift in the last few years, especially where for political benefit, people have tried to push people to hate trans people and to dehumanize them. And a lot of that is an intentional effort to not focus on real issues in our society, like the cost of living. When it comes to being scared of grandchildren, I can understand that. I've personally decided not to have kids, but I know plenty of trans people who have kids too. My co-host on my podcast, Jara, they have a child. My co-host, Jara, has a kid, and they're very happy with their experience raising their daughter, and it's great to see them. And even just the other day, I came over and they were telling me about their kid's first summer job and how exciting it is, and they're getting to do all of the rides at Kennywood. So I think that lots of trans people have kids. I've dated trans women, for instance, who were freezing their sperm while we were dating. There's an interest in having kids for a lot of trans people. It's not all trans people. They might not want to have kids in the exact same way. My attitude is, at this point, I don't know if I want to have kids, but if I do, I want to be a dad. If I were dating someone who wanted to carry children, I would support them. It's not something that I want for my own body, but I do have kids in my life. I have a goddaughter who is 3 years old, and I was there for the last few weeks of her mother's pregnancy. I was there for her birth. I go to New York City every single year for her birthday, and I have a video every year for her birthday. I've been started interviewing her at her birthday. So her third birthday, I made a little interview. So as she learns English and it forms into a person more and more, she's going to have this whole record of every single birthday. So even if the ways in which your child might connect to children might look different, it doesn't mean that they won't have children in their life.
And a free prescription at the end of every podcast that you can cash anywhere. Fruits, nuts, and vegetables, and unplug your television and take up fishing. And for a truly mindful experience, we suggest that you fish without bait. And this is a shameless plug for a new podcast from our new friend Vic, newrustpodcast.com. A new podcast that we generally encourage you to listen to. Continue our podcast next week as we continue our conversation with our friend Vic. And as always, do a kindness for yourself and do a kindness for another. Forgive yourself and forgive another. Till all are free, none are free. Namaste, my friend.
Please check out our website at fishingwithoutbait.com, where you can listen to the show, comment on our discussions, and find out where you can subscribe to our podcast. If you're interested in flying the colors of Fishing Without Bait, click the shop icon on our website. We have clothing, mugs, cell phone cases, and so much more. Show the world that you fish without bait. This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.